More than a meter of snow, thousands without power, and hundreds stranded on Highway 11, the latest on the aftermath of a weekend storm in cottage country.
And after facing years of backlash over Eglinton Crosstown delays, Phil Verster has stepped down as the CEO of Metrolinx.
And too much demand and
date or range of dates for Eglinton.
A new report shows food banks in the province, they're scaling back on services amid record high demand.
Plus, the strike by more than 55,000 postal workers enters its third week. When will the two sides get back to bargaining?
You're watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Zavit.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us. We begin in cottage country, still digging out tonight after an intense weekend storm dumped more than a meter of snow, leaving thousands without power.
And for the latest on how residents are dealing with the aftermath of the storm, let's go live to CP24. Steve Ryan, who is in the Aurelia area tonight. Steve, what has it been like for you just trying to get around up there?
Well, I can tell you the main roads, including the highways, are clear. So the crews up here have done fantastic work keeping those roads clear for drivers to use them. Albert and I had to meander through the back roads going north of Aurelia earlier this afternoon, and that was a bit tense because those roads clearly haven't been plowed. The attention is not to those roads, it's to the main arteries. So the back roads are still full of snow, very slippery, but the main roads, no, there's nobody on them. Many people are staying indoors, so it's kind of got the feel of that Christmas time of year between Christmas Day and, say, New Year's, where it's very relaxing outside and there's nobody out. That's how it feels like up here right now. Roads are clear, nobody's on them, but we're at the mall here right now, and there are people coming and going, but nowhere near what you would expect up here in cottage country, that's for sure.
Steve, we're just getting an update from Hydro One telling CP24 that crews are still working to restore power for approximately 170,000 customers. So lots of people still don't have electricity tonight. Have you seen any lights on, any signs that power has been restored for some people?
Where we are, Lena, I can tell you the lights are on. The homes that we drove by in these neighborhoods just north of Aurelia here, yes, the power is on in those neighborhoods. Now, at farther north, we could not get because we had to take the back roads, and that was a little bit too much with the snow. But where we are here in Aurelia, it does appear that the power is on.
Okay, and Steve, I know this may sound like a basic question, but what about stores and restaurants? Are people able, to get food or supplies that they need to? Because, it kind of caught people off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, stores are open in this mall, the Canadian Tire, the grocery store, there's restaurants here. They're all open. And we did spend about 90 minutes in a Tim Hortons parking lot just north of Aurelia trying to get some reaction from people coming into the Tim Hortons, but there was only 2 people that came in. And that was because that was in a pretty snowy area. The highway had been opened up, but there's still a lot of heavy snow in and around here. So people are just coping. They're adapting as they would do up in cottage country, and many of them are staying inside.
And lastly, Steve, how are people describing the storm? Obviously, they're used to getting snowfall, but as Bakari mentioned, this sort of caught a lot of people off guard, so much so that Bracebridge declared a state of emergency. So what are people telling you about the nature of the storm?
They are familiar with the snow. That's not a concern. What did concern people was being caught off guard, as you said, being stuck on the road. And even those that haven't experienced that, the thought of knowing that there were others on those roads trapped in that snow, that was a big concern for many and a surprise to many as well.
Okay, CP24, Steve Ryan. Steve, thank you very much. Well, the storm also led to the closure of Highway 11, where some drivers, they were stranded for hours.
Yeah, and for the latest on the status of the highway there, we're joined live by OPP Sergeant Carrie Schmidt tonight. It's good to see you once again, Sergeant. Thank you for joining us. Last time we talked, the northbound lanes were moving on Highway 11. What's the latest? Do you have an update on the southbound lanes?
Yes, I was just speaking to our incident commander up in Gravenhurst, dealing with the reopening plans and progress. Northbound from Aurelia up to Huntsville has reopened. We were making great progress. Snowblowers, plows, loaders, and trucks taking that snow away. Huge snowbanks. Luigi Road is the one ramp that is closed. We were hopeful that the southbound lanes of Highway 11 would reopen around 4 o'clock this afternoon, which is just behind us already. already. We are experiencing far more snow and ice than what we expected, and crews are working diligently. Unfortunately, we are going to be a few more hours before we are able to get those southbound lanes open from Highway 60. I know there's some areas where some cars have been filtering through, but we have some significant challenges ahead, in the Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, Huntsville area that is really slowing down our cleanup efforts.
All right, Sergeant Schmidt, here we go again. Just like that, after sort of, a mild fall, it's wintertime. What is it like to drive right now? What are the driving conditions like?
Well, do you know what? I was just showing some photographs from Gravenhurst where there's single lanes only with snowbanks 4 or 5 feet high on either side. Absolutely crippling, challenging. We are telling people, stay home, stay away, let the crews do their job, and we'll let them know when it's safe to come out. But right now, it is just far too challenging, and we want to make sure first responders, Hydro One, all those critical infrastructure crews are able to get to those affected areas and not get stopped by vehicles and drivers that happen to be stuck and stranded, blocking essential travel routes for those first responders.
Okay, OPP Sergeant Kerry Schmidt joining us live from the roads near Cottage Country tonight. Thanks so much for this update. We certainly appreciate your time. Stay safe out there.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, police have released pictures of a man wanted in an assault investigation.
48-year-old Jason Stacy is wanted for allegedly taking part in an assault and robbery near Danforth and Pape on November 18th. Police say the victim was speaking to one of the suspects when the second suspect attacked the victim from behind with a blunt object. The victim was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Stacy is described as 5'10", with a shaved head, facial hair, and musical note tattoos on his left forearm and a tribal face on his right forearm.
Well, police say alcohol was a factor in a crash in Peterborough. It seriously injured a young child.
At around 6 o'clock last night, officers were called to a single vehicle rollover on Country Road 2. They found the car in a ditch on its roof. A 3-year-old passenger taken to a local hospital, but was then airlifted to a Toronto hospital. Still waiting to learn more about their condition. A 7-year-old child in the car was not seriously injured. The 35-year-old driver was arrested and charged with impaired driving, causing bodily harm. The road was closed for a number of hours, but we can tell you it's since reopened.
Okay, so we've been following this. First is breaking news starting earlier today. Embattled CEO Phil Verster has resigned as the head of Metrolinx.
Yeah, the move comes after he provided an update last week on the long-delayed Eglinton Crosstown LRT. Let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan at Queen's Park. What's the reaction been like where you are tonight, Melissa?
Hi there, Lena. Yeah, we have been collecting some reaction here. So CEO of Metrolinx, Phil Verster, out after 7 years on the job. His resignation official today. He's got a new gig, going to be in the rail industry outside of Canada. And so we've been hearing from Premier Doug Ford today with some reaction about this exit. And keep in mind, too, that Verster's time as the CEO of Metrolinx, it has been dogged by transit delays, including, as you mentioned, that Crosstown LRT on Eglinton, still waiting for when is that going to begin. We don't have a date just yet. But still, Ford giving Verster just a glowing review upon his exit. Have a listen.
It's unfortunate. I was one of his biggest supporters. What he has done in the last 5.5 years is nothing less than a miracle, building 4 lines, $70 billion in transit. We're going to miss him, but we'll have a steady hand there.
Okay, so for some reaction, we've got NDPD leader Marit Stiles joining us. We just heard from Ford there giving, words of props to Verster after his time in charge. What's your reaction?
Well, I would say it's welcome news that Mr. Verster has resigned. We've been calling for his resignation or firing for some time now, and I just find it a bit rich to hear the Premier applauding his efforts. We know the Premier, after the last opportunity when Phil Verster and Metrolinx couldn't answer when the Eglinton LRT was going to open, they gave him $1 million raise. So I do find it surprising, though, because, look, at the end of the day, it's the transit, right? riders that have been left waiting in the cold, literally waiting. No lines have opened under Mr. Verster. The Eglinton LRT continues to be delayed. The Ontario line derailed. Ottawa LRT a mess. Right? This is the legacy. And so, and I really think that the government has a lot to answer for here as well as to why they continue to applaud those efforts when costs have just gone through the roof and the delays continue.
So what are you hoping is going to be in charge with Metrolinx going forward here? What are you looking for in a new CEO?
Well, I mean, first of all, some accountability, some responsibility. We have 86 vice presidents at Metrolinx. I mean, just consider that for a minute. That's a lot of money and resources thrown at Metrolinx with very few results to speak of. So I want to start seeing lines opening. I want accountability. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with Mr. Ford and the Conservative government. They are the big boss. And I think it speaks to where Mr. Ford's priorities are and his, the fact of how out of touch he is, that he thinks that he needs to applaud Mr. Verster on the way out the door. Ontarians have been let down. It is Ontarians who've invested in these lines, in this transit, and they're not seeing results.
Thanks so much for that. NDP leader Mart Stiles joining us now with some live reaction on Phil Verster's exit. We do know that there is going to be an interim leader coming in. That is Michael Lindsay, the current head of Infrastructure Ontario, but the search still on for a new permanent leader at Metrolinx. Back to you.
All right, Melissa Duggan working on this developing story out of Queen's Park tonight. Thanks, Melissa. You're watching Live at 5.
The food banks, they're cutting back on services. We're going to tell you why after the break.
Welcome back. A new Feed Ontario report shows food banks in the province, they're cutting back on services as they run out of resources amid record high demand.
Yeah, the report reveals 40% of food banks have reduced the amount of food they provide. Half have been forced to cut wraparound services that offer support to clients. Neil Hetherington with the Daily Bread Food Bank says they are among the charities that have begun scaling back services.
It's unfortunate. The community continues to step up, and so we're grateful for that. But it's just the demand continues to rise at rates that we haven't seen before across the province. Some rise of about 38%. That's reflected here in Toronto as well, and we're just not seeing an end to the rise in demand.
Now, Feed Ontario says 2 out of 5 food bank clients are using the service for the first time ever, and that is an increase of 43% from 2019 to 2020.
We're in the third week of the postal strike, and the union for more than 55,000 Canada Post workers says that it is now reviewing a framework that the Crown Corporation has presented to reach a negotiated agreement.
Let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins for an update on when talks could resume. Where's that special mediator in all of this, Phil?
Well, okay, so this new framework that Canada Post sent to the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, that was sent yesterday, December 1st. This new framework in anticipation, hopefully reigniting some talks. And you take a look at the CUPW website, they said they've received it. They're analyzing it right now. They acknowledge that both Canada Post and CUPW have adjusted both of their demands. They're trying to see what this special mediator has to say. They have to give this one a green light. But according to the Minister of Labour, Stephen McKinnon, he put out on X, quote, mediation will only resume once the special mediator has clear evidence that both parties sufficiently modified their respective positions. He goes on to add, no such evidence to date has been given that they have modified their demands sufficiently. Again, this was yesterday. Have things changed in the last 24 hours? Potentially, but some of the issues that are still at hand here and whether they've suddenly moved on that on either the Canada Post or the CUPW side. The big one is the expansion of parcel deliveries into the weekend to try to keep up with some of the private corporations and, of course, increased pay, improved working conditions. We spoke with John Hamilton, a spokesperson from Canada Post. Here's what he had to say.
What we're hoping is that it will really reignite discussions. There's a gap, a big gap at the table, as we've seen, and the mediators have said. And, the only way you're going to close that gap is if we start to make movements. We've done that, and we are hoping that CUPW will follow suit. But are we looking for a new way of delivering for weekends and making changes to our delivery model so we can compete in the parcel space? Absolutely.
And of course, this all happening as small and medium-sized businesses who rely on Canada Post are currently suffering. We understand from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business saying that small to medium-sized businesses have been spending nearly $800 million. It's going to reach $1 billion of money spent during this busy holiday season when they rely on the Canada Post to deliver their products. It could hit $1 billion lost by Wednesday. Also, we're understanding the U.S. Postal Service barring any mail being sent to Canada right now due to this strike. Back to you two.
All right, CP24's Phil Perkins live in the newsroom with the latest on the Canada Post strike. Phil, thank you.
No problem.
Well, Canada's Auditor General says that the government program that offered loans to businesses during the pandemic, well, had significant flaws.
Yeah, Karen Hogan tabled a report to Parliament that concluded the Canada Emergency Business Account Program moved too quickly to give loans to small businesses. She says it was compromised by poor management, oversight failures, and wasn't managed with regard for value for money. More than $8 billion in loans were dispersed through CEBA, still hadn't been repaid as of March 31st.
Right now, it is 5:17, 1 above 0, but feeling more like -4 outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we'll tell you the results of a vote on a bill to make Truth and Reconciliation Day a statutory holiday in Ontario. Welcome back. A bill to make Truth and Reconciliation Day a stat holiday has failed in the Ontario legislature.
A Bill 221 was put forward by NDP MPP Sol Mamakwa, who earlier this year became the first person to give a speech in an Indigenous language at Queen's Park. The bill failed 60-30 in the legislature today, and Mamakwa joined us on CP24 after the vote.
We have good days. We have bad days. This is one of the bad days that we have here at Queen's Park, me as a Indigenous legislator. And I think, we are asking for one day out of the 135 days, a day to mourn. The countless children, that we've lost for Canada and not even Ontario to reflect on the truth of its history. And this government said no, and I think the intent of the bill was again to avoid repeating past mistakes. We must educate, remind, and reflect.
This comes after news today that an Ontario coroner's investigation identified 220 more deaths linked to residential schools in Ontario.
Well, the Ford government has launched a campaign advertising Ontario as an ally to the north, with the threat of significant tariffs on Canada goods looming.
For generations, this ally to the north has been by your side. Ontario, Canada, a partner connected by shared history, shared values, and a shared vision for what we can achieve together.
Premier Doug Ford shared this 1-minute-long video this morning. The province says the ad will run during primetime NFL games on Fox, at airports in Washington over the holidays, and it'll also continue into the new year. Ford's pitch for stronger Ontario-U.S. relations comes on the heels of President-elect Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian and Mexican goods.
Well, Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie says that the ads are too little, too late.
You need to meet with the governors. You need to meet with CEOs. When I was mayor of the city of Mississauga, I made an effort to meet with the CEOs of our companies eye to eye to appreciate their business and tell them that I appreciated their investment and I hope that they would grow it. And that's the kind of relationships you need to forge in the United States. You had to have done that already, not now. Where was he before?
The province is yet to release the cost of that ad campaign.
Well, Canada has added Ansarallah, better known as the Houthi militant group, to its list of terrorist entities.
The group has launched a number of attacks on civilian and naval vessels in the Red Sea since November of last year, contributing to regional unrest. The Houthis have also worked closely with Iran's Revolutionary Guards and Hezbollah, both of which are also listed as terrorist entities. Now, under Canadian law, the designation allows for criminal penalties against any person or group that knowingly deals with such a listed entity.
The terrorist acts perpetrated by Ansarallah in the Red Sea threaten civilian lives and global supply chains, and we stand with the United States in using every tool at our disposal to hold this group and backers to account.
And the U.S. listed the Houthis as a terrorist group in January of this year.
It is 5:22 now. +1 out there. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, today is Cyber Monday, expected to be the busiest shopping day of the year. All right, it's Cyber Monday, and this year could be the biggest one yet. Lena?
Yeah?
Did you take advantage?
Not quite yet, but I'm still looking for deals. Still looking, Bakari. Well, today is the busiest online shopping day of the year, and if you're like me, you still have some time, right, the rest of the day. American shoppers, by the way, are expected to spend a record $13.2 billion. That is up more than 6% over last year. More shoppers than ever plan to use buy now, pay later plans this holiday season, as years of high inflation have driven up the price of consumer goods. Cyber Monday follows a pretty successful Black Friday that saw U.S. consumers spend $10.8 billion online.
Well, tech analyst Carmi Levy says it's important for shoppers to be wary of scammers while hunting for Cyber Monday bargains.
There's so much hype around Cyber Monday shopping that your inbox is going to be clogged. Your social media feeds are going to be filled with ads. Everybody's sort of screaming for your attention. And so before you follow that ad home, you want to make sure that this is indeed a legitimate vendor, a legitimate retailer that you can trust. Because in many cases, cyber criminals are trying to insert themselves into that conversation. They want you to click on their link. And of course, at that point, you're in trouble.
Well, Sean McCormick, Vice President of Moneris Data Services, says that shoppers looking to secure a deal today should consider picking up their order if they're concerned about the Canada Post strike.
You can still buy online, take advantage of the Cyber Monday deal, get your 20, 30, 40, 50% off, whatever it is, but just plan to go pick that up in store. Avoid disappointment. Or if you're shopping on one of the more, one of the larger e-commerce, sites like an Amazon, et cetera, those guys are definitely going to find a way to get it to you. I was shopping this morning and I saw I could get something by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I don't think it's going to affect those types of purchases as much, but the smaller retailers, the local retailers that you still want to support, choose the pickup in store. You can still buy online and take advantage. You just got to get in your car and battle a little bit of traffic.
Now, other precautions shoppers can take include not clicking on social media links and using credit cards instead of debit to make purchases online.
Well, in the Christmas spirit, St. Lawrence Market is getting even more festive this year with an outdoor winter market. Market
Street from front to the Esplanade will be pedestrian only from Thursdays to Sundays starting this week until December 23rd. The family-friendly shopping experience will include unique artisanal goods, delicious seasonal food, and drinks and entertainment. There will also be free photos with Santa on Saturdays and live carolers that time of year.
It's 5:28, 1 above 0. This is Live at 5.
Well, after facing years of backlash over Eglinton Crosstown delays, Phil Verster announces he is stepping down as the CEO of Metrolinx. We'll tell you why and have reaction next.
More than a meter of snow, thousands without power, hundreds stranded on Highway 11. The latest on the aftermath of a weekend storm in cottage country. We continue live coverage at CP24's Steve Ryan.
Well, after facing years of backlash over Eglinton Crosstown delays, Phil Verster has announced that he is stepping down as the CEO of Metrolinx. We have a reaction coming up.
Too much demand, not enough food. A new report shows food banks in the province are cutting back on services amid record high demand.
Plus, the strike by more than 55,000 postal workers enters its third week. When will the two sides get back to bargaining? We'll take a closer look.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lena Latifax.
And I'm Bakari Savage. Embattled CEO Phil Verster has resigned as the head of Metrolinx. The move comes after the province, or rather after he updated last week on the long-delayed Eglinton Crosstown LRT.
Yeah, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan at Queen's Park. No shortage of reaction where you are, Melissa.
That's right, Lindsay, or Lena, definitely. Listen, it was last week that I was actually getting reaction to that mini update that we got from Metrolinx CEO Phil Verster about saying maybe there was going to be an opening date for that Eglinton Crosstown LRT sometime in the new year. So I was asking commuters, how do you feel about these very long delays? And they were very frustrated, to say the least. And we're hearing that frustration really being echoed by the opposition here today. No love lost on their end hearing about Verster's exit. He resigned today. It was made official, leaving the post after 7 years on the job. We know that he's got a new gig outside of Canada working in the railway industry, leaving behind a number of projects that are over budget, that are long delayed, and certainly a lot of commuters that were hoping to hop on some of these projects, including that Eglinton Crosstown LRT. By the way, it was supposed to open back in 2020, and still no idea just yet exactly when we'll be able to hop on board that. Still, Premier Doug Ford giving a glowing review to Verster, saying that he is one of his biggest supporters. Sad to see that he is leaving. Want to share some reaction with you.
You know something? That's one fraction. I was the first. I come out all the time. I agree. It was terrible. It's done now. We're going through training on the line. But what people don't look at, in the last 5 years, we're building 4 transit systems, subways, largest expansion in North America, the Finch LRT, we're getting the Highway 10 LRT, working on Hamilton LRT, and then on top of that, all the transit-oriented communities.
I wish we all knew what the problem was. I mean, it just is outrageous that the Ford government has failed to deliver transit. They've been in government now for 6 years, and we still don't know when the Eglinton Crosstown is going to open. And so I think the government needs to work with the new interim head of Metrolinx, be honest with people about when these are going to open, and actually be honest with people about how we can start building transit on budget or on time, because this government has failed to do that.
Party leader Mike Schreiner there, and we were just talking with NDP leader Marit Stiles just a few moments ago. Both of them saying that they wanted Verster out of this job years ago. Now he is on his way out. We do know that the interim head of Metrolinx is going to be the current head of Infrastructure Ontario. That is Michael Lindsay. As for the permanent CEO, we're still waiting to hear what the project is or what the plan is for that. Back to you.
Reporting live tonight. Melissa, thanks so much for this. And for more reaction to the resignation of Phil Verster, let's bring in Emery Aikens. She's a public affairs executive consultant with Curious Public, also former chief spokesperson for Metrolinx. Emery, thanks for joining us. Really good to get your perspective as someone who's been on the inside at the organization. Let me begin by asking you about your reaction to Verster's departure.
Well, I had this curious surprised but not surprised reaction. I was surprised. I was surprised at all because it has been, I would think, expected for some months, and I think a lot of people in the inside that work with Phil and with on all of these projects that were probably expecting it months ago. The pressure's been enormous on him.
Okay, so you said expecting this months ago. Look, timing is everything. We all know about this in life. Verster, Metrolinx facing lots of questions about the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. For a very long time, Verster provided an update on the LRT last week. So why now?
Well, it's difficult. It sounds like he has a new job. And Phil is one of those kind of rare people in the rail industry that has both operation, and that's hard to come by. So I'm not surprised, in spite of the even notorious nature of the transit programs in Toronto. He's got skills for that kind of thing. He's a brilliant negotiator. He is tough. You never wanted to go to a meeting with him unprepared, ever. And I knew that, and I always made sure I was very prepared. But he's a very tough guy to work with, and not everybody could work with him. Michael Lindsay is the exact opposite. I worked with Michael when he was, because he's been at IO for some time, and he's kind of the opposite, but again, brilliant. And very smart, very kind, very nice. He's a much more compassionate leader than perhaps Phil is. But but he's not going to put fresh eyes on the project. And I think maybe that's what Eglinton and the other projects really need, is maybe some fresh eyes to see, what's holding them back. How can we keep them moving and make sure that they really do get open and get open safely.
Yeah, that's really what everybody is waiting for. Anne-Marie, I want to get to the criticism because there's certainly been a lot. We just heard from the Ontario NDP, not mincing words there. Look, it's been 13 long years. Critics have been saying there's a real lack of transparency here for Metrolinx on the Eglinton Crosstown file. Still no opening date. Just we'll let you know 3 months before we're ready. Do you think the public deserves better than that? And does the next CEO need to understand that?
Absolutely. I think the lack of transparency has been a problem for the last few years, and the public is now distrustful of whatever Metrolinx says because of that, and that's really unfortunate. We used to, when I was there, it's been a couple of years, but we used to at the board meetings give very detailed updates of where projects were and what was happening with them. And that somehow changed, and they haven't been able to give the information, and that's caused problems for them. Because, these projects are difficult. They survived through a pandemic, and that a very difficult, protracted pandemic that cost increased costs, delayed projects. It delayed a lot of things, and I think it was. The public will accept your explanations if you're honest, transparent, and open about them, about what's really happening with projects. So, Michael would be open to that, but both these organizations are very much managed from the Premier's office down, and so they're still going to be beholden to the same people. And unless they change direction on their transparency, they're still going to run into the same problems.
Yeah, and that begs the question of whether a fresh pair of eyes is needed at the leadership helm. Anne-Marie Aikens, Public Affairs Executive Consultant with Curious Public. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Good to be with you tonight.
Yes.
Well, let's get to another story we're keeping a close eye on. Cottage country still digging out after an intense weekend storm dumped more than a meter of snow, leaving thousands without power and something that shut down the local highway as well.
And for the latest on how residents are dealing with the aftermath of the storm, let's go live to CP24. Steve Ryan, who's in the Aurelia area tonight. Okay, so Steve, set it up for us. You said there were not a lot of people out and about where you've been. What have you seen so far this evening?
Well, there certainly is evidence of that 140 centimeters of snow that has fallen over the weekend, and that certainly has shut down anywhere from Huntsville all the way down here to Aurelia. Now, we have spent a good part of our day here in Aurelia, on the north part of Aurelia, because it's harder to get north of there because of all the snow. But the Highway 11 is opened up going through Aurelia, north and south. We did hear from the OPP that the southbound Highway 11 at Huntsville is still closed. They're having some difficulties because the snow continues to fall. Now, this snow caught a lot of people off guard, particularly those in their vehicles. The OPP told us today that they had to assist hundreds of drivers who were stranded on the highway as a result of the significant snowfall. But here in Aurelia, I can tell you that the Highway 11 and all the other main arteries are clear. We did take the back roads going north of Aurelia today, and that was a little bit, I would say, white-fisted, clutching the steering wheel going north, because the roads certainly weren't plowed properly, because the priority is on the main roads in Aurelia. But what we're hearing is that up north of here in Huntsville and Gravenhurst, it still is a different story when it comes to the snow. There is still a significant amount of snow up there, while the OPP, the Ministry of Transportation, and the Ontario Power people try to restore power. There are still over 180,000 people without electricity. Here is more from Sergeant Schmidt, who we spoke with just a short time ago. Let's listen.
Northbound from Aurelia up to Huntsville has reopened. We are making great progress. Snowblowers, plows, loaders, and trucks taking that snow away. Huge snowbanks. Luigi Road is the one ramp that is closed. We're hopeful that the southbound lanes of Highway 11 would reopen around 4 o'clock this afternoon, which is just behind us already. We are experiencing far more snow and ice than what we expected. And crews are working diligently. Unfortunately, we are going to be a few more hours before we were able to get those southbound lanes open from Highway 60.
The OPP are still advising people, particularly north of Orillia, to stay inside and not go out unless you have to, especially now that we hear that there's another 25 centimeters of snow on the way for that area. Welcome to winter. Let's back to you guys.
Yeah, great reminder. Steve Ryan reporting live from the Orillia area tonight. Steve, thanks so much for this and drive safely. Now, we do have an update from Hydro One this hour. I tell CP24 that crews have been busy at work restoring power for 170,000 customers since the start of the storm. Steve was just talking about those numbers. Let's take a closer look. More details now. At this time, Hydro One says there are currently under 11,000 customers without power in Bracebridge, about 1,400 in Parry Sound, and 3,100 in Penetanguishene. So that is the latest. Keep it here as we keep a close eye on this developing story from cottage country.
Right now it's 5:42, holding at 1 above 0. This is Live at 5.
The U.S. Postal Service is not accepting Canada-bound mail as the Canada Post strike continues for a third week now. We're going to have an update on where negotiations are at next.
We're in the third week of the postal strike, and the union for more than 55,000 Canada Post workers says it is reviewing a framework the Crown Corporation has presented to try and reach a negotiated agreement.
Let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins for an update now. And the big question, when will talks resume, Phil?
Okay, well, these talks are going to resume once the special mediator feels like that both parties have adjusted their demands sufficiently. So Canada Post sent the Canadian Union of Postal Workers an adjusted framework to try to spur a return to the negotiating table. They have been talking for quite some time. CUPW said on their website that they're reviewing this new framework and that also they are adjusting their demands. But the Minister of Labour, Stephen McKinnon, said yesterday when this adjusted framework was sent out, saying that it's going to take the special mediator to receive clear evidence that both parties have sufficiently modified their respective positions. And at that point, they have not received any evidence that that has happened. Maybe it's changed in the last 24 hours. And if it does, they can go back to talking. And then people can start, sending parcels and sending gifts and cards. And charities can start receiving money as well. People can get their health cards. A lot of government documents sent via Canada Post. Some of the main issues really is that they want to expand parcel deliveries into the weekend, try to keep up with those other private parcel services. That also increase pay, better working conditions, all while this union, which represents 55,000 workers, that they're also filing an unfair labor practice complaint, saying that Canada Post temporarily laid off striking workers. They're saying that's an intimidation tactic. So a lot happening right now. Here's John Hamilton with Canada Post.
The union has a number of demands still on the table. We've been clear that if we want to build for the future and take more of those parcels that are out there for the taking, we need to be competitive and in that space. And that's a more flexible delivery model that allows for weekends, allows for more part-time, so you have that flexibility.
And the U.S. Postal Service, as you mentioned before the break, not accepting any Canada-bound mail right now while the strike continues into its third week. Also, businesses here in this country, according to the CFIB, say that it's cost them nearly $800 million. This strike could reach $1 billion by Wednesday. That's a big hit during the holiday season. Back to you two.
All right, CP24's Phil Perkins live in the newsroom with the latest in the Canada Post strike. Thanks, Phil.
No problem.
A new Feed Ontario report shows food banks in the province, they're cutting back on services that they run as they run out of resources. This is amid record high demand.
Yeah, the report reveals that 40% of food banks have reduced the amount of food they provide, and half have been forced to cut wraparound services that offer support to clients. Neil Hetherington with the Daily Bread Food Bank says they're among the charities that have begun scaling back.
That's the infuriating part to me. 60% have a university education, a college or university education, and so they did everything right. They went to school, they got a job, they're working hard, and yet they still have to rely on food charity. And in a city as wonderful as ours is, that shouldn't be the case. And we know why it's the case. We know it's because of a lack of affordable housing. We know it's because much of that employment is precarious employment. People don't have benefits, and so they're making difficult choices between rent or hydro.
Feed Ontario says that 2 out of 5 food bank clients, they're using the service for the first time. That's an increase of 43% from 2019 to 2020.
Yeah, some more concerning numbers on the food insecurity crisis. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, we're going to take a look at a new ad campaign by the Ford government touting Ontario's trade relationship with the U.S.
Welcome back. Toronto Public Library is apologizing after staff at an East End branch refused to help a lost girl.
Megan Kinch told CP24 that her daughter was let out from her PA Day program a couple hours early and accidentally jumped on the wrong streetcar to head home. Well, she then found herself lost and walked into the Riverdale Library branch to borrow their phone. However, a staff member refused the request. Toronto Public Library apologized for the incident and says they'll be reaching out to the family directly.
Well, the Ford government has launched a campaign advertising Ontario as an ally to the North, with a threat of significant tariffs on Canadian goods looming.
For generations, this ally to the North has been by your side. Ontario, Canada, a partner connected by shared history, shared values, and a shared vision for what we can achieve together.
Premier Doug Ford shared this 1-minute-long video today. The province says that the ad will run during primetime NFL games on Fox at airports in Washington over the holidays and will also continue into the new year. Ford's pitch for stronger Ontario-U.S. relations comes on the heels of President-elect Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian and Mexican goods. Well, Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles reacted to the government's ad campaign at Queen's Park today.
I think that any ads that are promoting our economic interests south of the border, that are responding to with these threats that we've seen from President-elect Trump, I support, promoting Ontario's economic interests in the United States, promoting our tourism, promoting our industries. Absolutely. I have concerns about this Premier's record when it comes to his vanity ads, which they've wasted tens of millions of Ontario taxpayer dollars on already.
Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie says the ads are too little, too late.
You need to meet with the governors. You need to meet with CEOs. When I was mayor of the city of Mississauga, I made an effort to meet with the CEOs of our companies eye to eye to appreciate their business and tell them that I appreciated their investment and I hope that they would grow it. And that's the kind of relationships you need to forge in the United States. You had to have done that already, not now. Where was he before?
Well, also, the province has yet to release the cost of the ad campaign.
Well, Yahoo and Rogers customers in Canada have until the end of this month to claim hundreds of dollars from a data breach.
Eligible customers must file a claim online before December 27th to get $375 cash. And the Yahoo data breach happened from 2013 to 2016. Cyber criminals targeted Yahoo's computer system to gain access to the personal information of users. The lawsuit against the company alleged Yahoo had inadequate data security measures.
540-54 plus 1. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, Oxford University Press has named its Word of the Year. Hope you're ready. Well, the Leafs are getting back some key players as they begin a stretch of 3 home games.
Yeah, Toronto is coming off a 5-3 victory against the Lightning Saturday night. Although the team did give up 3 goals in the final 10 minutes of the game. Austin Matthews, coming off an upper body injury, had 2 assists in the win. And Matthew Nyes also scored in his return from injury. The Leafs welcome in the basement-dwelling Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Puck drop is set for 7:30.
Well, YouTube has released its top trends for the past year.
In Canada, the Olympics, the U.S. election, and Deadpool and Wolverine were all cultural touchpoints that led viewers to YouTube. YouTube's own content, including Has Been Hotel and Amazing Digital Circus, as well as competitive fashion game Dress to Impress, were all in the top trending searches. Top trending songs included Shabuzi's A Bar Song and Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso.
Well, the head of communications for YouTube Canada says female pop stars were one of the highlights of the year on the app.
It was a very, very big year for female pop stars. We all are very familiar, of course, with everything Taylor Swift this year, but Sabrina Carpenter also had an epic year. She was on the top trending list, and her song Espresso is also on the list of top songs this year. And, she had an incredible year. She performed at Coachella. She actually surprised fans at one of Taylor Swift's shows. And of course, who could forget that incredible Saturday Night Live skit, Domingo, based on her song Espresso as well.
And Benson Boone's song Beautiful Things topped the list of most listened to songs on YouTube for 2024.
Well, Oxford University Press has named Brain Rot its word of the year.
Yeah, I love this story. So brain rot is defined as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially from consuming too much online content. Oxford says use of the phrase is up 230% from 2023. It was chosen by a combination of public vote and language analysis experts. Brain rot beat out 5 other finalists that included demure, slop, dynamic pricing, romanticy, and lure.
This is Live at 5. Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.